Good evening, Crimson Tide Nation, and welcome to the 8th edition of the Alabama Crimson Tide Call-In Show right here on Alabama at the Voice of College Football, where we take your calls on the Alabama Crimson Tide. So I'm yours truly, Jackson Johnson, and I got my partner in crime, Jeffrey, at Only Talk Sports. As while we wait for your calls, we give you our takes on what's going on with Alabama and so much more. We moved it up to tonight because instead of having it on Thursday, it's just not right to work on Thanksgiving. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't we just do it on Wednesday? And Jeffrey was cool with it and told Mark, we'll move it on up to Wednesday for this week, and he was cool with it. And I figure you guys be cool with it as well. We'll keep it short for you tonight because you got families come home too. Let me tell you something, folks. It's gonna be a wild ride. How you doing today, good buddy?
Doing pretty good, Jackson. Alabama wasn't doing so good last week, but hopefully this coming week they do a whole lot better in the Iron Bowl. And I see Adam in chat already. He's coming for the throat.
He did. Well, Jeffrey already did that on Only Talk Sports.
Yeah, I did. I did. I'm here now to give my eulogy for Alabama. Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's a eulogy for both of them. It's terrible, but doing pretty good tonight. Excited about it, talking about Alabama football, and hope to get some callers tonight to hear y'all's takes as well. There's a lot to talk about. I mean, Alabama, despite getting absolutely embarrassed by Oklahoma and giving no effort, especially on offense, Bama technically is still alive for the playoff. I mean, should they be? No. I think we can both agree that Alabama should not be in consideration for the playoff. But they still are, because the rankings put them at number 13. So with a lot of chaos, Alabama could still backdoor their way into the playoffs somehow, which, again, I don't agree with. But the brand name of Alabama and still that win over Georgia and their strength of schedule overall is going to look like it's going to save them a little bit. But I would not be putting Alabama into the playoff if it was up to me. But I do think overall that since so many other teams lost, that's the only reason Bama still has a chance. Like if Ole Miss and Texas A&M, and the BYUs, if all those teams didn't lose, right, then I do think that Alabama would have been officially done. But all that chaos is still giving them a shot. A slim chance, though.
Agreed. And I was looking at the rankings, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it up in just a little bit because I think we've got the link somewhere. But it looks like we're going to need a lot of magic.
Yes.
But we need to win.
Just blow out Auburn. That would help if you blow out Auburn.
That's all we need to do. We need to blow those Tigers out. Got to give out that rammer jammer yellow hammer. Give them hell, Alabama.
Should have done that against Oklahoma, man. I mean, that game still was bothering me really bad. I mean, like I said, I guess I'm glad Alabama still has a chance to make the playoff, but they shouldn't. I mean, that Oklahoma game is one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my life from a quality team like Alabama. I mean, that is the amount of effort in that game was not not there. It was non-existent. I mean, the defense played okay. They tried a little bit, but offense was terrible. Just absolutely abysmal.
So I know some people are saying we need to rely on South Carolina to beat Clemson. I mean, yeah, on the one hand, we got that head-to-head win over South Carolina, but that looks more – Clemson, South Carolina looks more like a second-round playoff game to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to need we may need Oregon State to pull some magic against Boise State on Black Friday. May need Cal to bail us out against SMU.
Or we need going down to Syracuse.
Oh, yeah. We need Syracuse to pull some magic.
Notre Dame losing to USC. Sorry, Will.
Well, we need Vanderbilt to save us.
All those things aren't going to happen, though, most likely. If every single one of those teams lost, that would be the most chaos ever. Last week was already chaos enough, but if every single one of those teams go down, that would be insane. And, yeah, Alabama would probably be in the playoff for sure no matter what if that happened. But I don't think all those teams are going to lose. But the key is how many of those teams need to lose, because not all of them have to lose.
No.
I think Alabama needs to beat Auburn by like 20-plus points.
Yep.
And then they probably need 2 or 3 of those teams to lose. 2 or 3. I don't know whether the magic number's 2 or 3, but it's in that range. Like if you could get a Tennessee loss to Vandy, or a Miami loss to Syracuse, or a Boise State loss to Oregon State, like that would probably be enough. But you wouldn't. The Clemson South Carolina game wouldn't be the deal breaker.
No.
Or the Notre Dame USC game wouldn't be the deal breaker, in my opinion. They just need a couple of those results. Even Indiana losing to Purdue would obviously help, but please, God forbid that happen. No, I do not want that happening. And most likely it wouldn't happen. Appreciate that, Adam, by the way. Appreciate it a lot. But yeah, Alabama's just on the fringe. They shouldn't even be on the fringe. They honestly should be down there like 17th right now. But the Ole Miss loss, the A&M loss, all those losses, right? BYU going down, Colorado going down, all these teams going down, it did benefit Alabama. Because, if Ole Miss didn't lose, Ole Miss would be ahead of them right now. Alabama would be at 14. If A&M didn't lose, Alabama would be at 15. You see what I'm saying? Like, all those teams going down is the only reason Bama's still even in the hunt at all in the first place.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Texas A&M. If they win against Texas, they're in the SEC title game. And honestly, I think
that would be bad for Alabama. Yeah. It would be better for Alabama if Texas A&M's out of the picture. If Texas A&M is out of the picture, because they're a bid stealer. A&M's a bid stealer. If they win the SEC, they're a bid stealer because they're not going to get in as an at-large. They have no shot of getting in as an at-large. So that hurts Indiana. That hurts Alabama. That hurts all these fringe teams. That hurts, a Clemson or South Carolina, the winner of that game. It hurts any of those teams. A&M needs to lose to Texas because Texas is in regardless. If Texas loses to Texas A&M, Texas is in regardless. So that's my opinion. I think it would be better for Alabama if Texas A&M goes down.
Yeah. It would be awesome if Texas can help us out a little bit.
And another thing that will help Bama and Indiana too, again, the fringe teams, would be one ACC team in. The Big 12's already cannibalized itself. They're done. BYU choked, so the Big 12's not going to get more than one team. The winner of the Big 12's in, and everybody else is done. But the ACC still has that Clemson, SMU, Miami thing. If Miami goes down in the ACC title game, do they still get in? That's why it would be better for Miami to go down to Cuse, and it would be better for SMU to go down as well because of the fact if both those teams lose, then it's going to eliminate a 2-bid ACC. It's only going to be a 1-bid ACC, and that's going to make one more bid for an at-large like Alabama or Indiana. You're not going to get those bid stealers. It basically is working the same way as March Madness works. You don't want bid stealers like from the A10, where like Dayton and VCU get in instead of it just being one team like Dayton or whatever. And then that helps a team from the Big Ten that's, like an Illinois who's on the bubble or whatever. It's the same way it's working here.
Agreed. And, Indiana, I think, obviously gets in. No questions asked. All they got to do is...
they're fine. There's just still that slight possibility that if Indiana beats Purdue, but it's not like a comfortable win, like they win by like 10, and then you do have like the Clemson, South Carolina chaos, whatever happens, Bama throttles Auburn, Boise State wins big, like all those things happen, and then Indiana maybe could get leapfrog, but realistically though, that's not going to happen. Right now, according to the ESPN FBI predictor, Indiana has the 6th best odds to make the champion, or the CFP, the college football playoff. The 6th best odds. They're at 91%. So they're obviously expecting them to beat Purdue. They're favored by 29. So they're going to get in. but a little more chaos wouldn't hurt, right? And plus, it would also increase Indiana's chances of getting a home game in the playoff if some of these teams like Tennessee and, Miami go down. If those teams go down, then that moves Indiana up, maybe to a home game, and then that could move Alabama into the field. But obviously, I think A&M could get the automatic bid if they went out, which again would be bad. But other than A&M with that scenario, I think Alabama's really the only team with 3 losses that has a chance to get in, other than maybe South Carolina. South Carolina does have a slim chance because they do have the fact of the matter. They have a big game left, right? You look at Bama, they're playing a 5-win Auburn team. That doesn't really move the needle that much. Ole Miss is playing a garbage Mississippi State team. That doesn't move the needle much. South Carolina is getting Clemson, a top 15 team. That moves the needle. A win over them would move the needle. So I think South Carolina still has a slim chance. Are they more than likely going to get in? Probably not, but they do have a slim chance. But other than South Carolina, Alabama, and Texas A&M, those are the only 3-loss teams from the SEC that still technically have a chance to get in. I mean, I know some people would say Ole Miss. I don't see Ole Miss having a shot. I don't. No. I really don't. South Carolina also has the benefit of the doubt that people are going to say, well, they had those close losses to LSU and Alabama. They barely lost. Remember that year Alabama had the 2 losses and they were close losses and people were trying to say that they were going to get in? How you lose matters too. How you lose matters too. So I still think South Carolina has a slim chance. I wouldn't put them in, but they do have a slim chance. If so much chaos happens, I think that Bama and South Carolina can still get into the college football playoff.
And, a lot of people have been talking about Alabama or Indiana. Mm-hmm. I've not heard a shred of thought towards SMU. I've not heard anybody talk about SMU. Like, not on ESPN, nobody. Nobody's talking about SMU. That is a team that has no room for error. They can't rely on people thinking about the old days, because, like, the old days were the bad days where bite them in the rear. The definition of a Martin Scorsese movie for SMU football. And basically, SMU just has to keep winning and winning, which not good for Alabama, but we basically need to pull for either California or Clemson or Miami. To basically, because like Miami is in a win and you're in the ACC title game.
Yeah.
Miami just kind of feels like they're that squiggly line of, do we leave them out? Do we put them in?
I would leave them out if they don't win the ACC.
Oh, they should. They should be left out, but we've seen the committee.
Well, people are saying that if Indiana, just say Ohio State somehow lost to Michigan and Penn State somehow lost to Maryland, it's not going to happen. But if that happened, Indiana would get in the Big Ten title game with a win over Purdue. They would get in the Big Ten title game. People are saying that Indiana, if they lost to Oregon in the Big Ten title game, would not make the playoff with 2 losses. Well, if that's the case, how does Miami get in with 2 losses in the ACC, an inferior conference, and they have a worse loss to Georgia Tech than Indiana's 2 losses would be to Oregon and Ohio State? You see what I'm saying? You can't do that. Miami should not get in the college football playoff. Miami's strength of schedule is worse than Indiana's. And Miami's got close wins over bad teams, whereas Indiana has blown everybody out except Michigan. And do people really think Michigan's bad? I don't. Michigan's not a bad football team. They have a bad quarterback, but they're not a bad football team. Nobody's saying Cal is good, and Miami should have lost to Cal. Nobody's saying Virginia Tech is good. Miami should have lost to Virginia Tech. Miami's not a great football team. They're just not a great football team. They barely beat Louisville, too. Louisville's better, but still. They're just overall not great. And that Florida win, people keep saying the Florida win. Well, they beat Florida on the road by 24. Do you really think they beat Florida by 24 today? I don't. I do not see that at all. If they played Florida today, it'd be a one-score game.
They beat a pitiful – yeah, they beat a pitiful Florida team with Graham Mertz at quarterback.
No. You can't compare the way a team was in the past versus how they're playing today if it's a dramatic difference. Florida is a way different team today than before. Like, if Florida played Georgia in week 1, Florida would have lost by 40. But when Florida played Georgia later on in the season, they only lost by 14. And Lagway got hurt in that game. If Lagway didn't get hurt, we could have seen an upset where Florida beats Georgia. And then, Florida would have a much better, perspective around the country where people actually think that they're decent instead of people saying they're no good. And Georgia would be eliminated right now. And I mean, like to Adam's point about Florida should be in, the issue is that they can't physically or feasibly be in because they have too many losses. But the way Florida is playing right now, they do look like a top 25 team or maybe even a top 20 team. But they have all those losses early in the season, so they're not going to get in. I mean, that's the playoff only works on whether you win your games. That's why I think Alabama should be done. They have 3 losses. They should not get in. But because of all this chaos, there's still a chance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because and I think the reason why I think there could be like a lobbying session for like a 2-loss Miami team, which I agree with you, there really shouldn't be. It's because so many people have so much nostalgia of back in the day. You hear it so much. They have so much nostalgia of what happened in the 80s, what happened in the 50s, what happened in my childhood. There's so much nostalgia for that. Miami was the big brand in the 80s. And it's like, oh my God, we want to see a U part 3 or U part 3. It's like, oh God.
I mean, like people are saying like Indiana shouldn't be in, some because they haven't played anybody, whatever. They lost to the only good team they played. Well, what's the difference between Indiana and Penn State? There really isn't a difference. I mean, Penn State, the only thing they have that Indiana doesn't is I guess, decent non-conference win. Penn State won at West Virginia. Other than that, there's really nothing else. I mean,
but I mean, it's not
State is not significantly different than Indiana. They're not. They should not be ranked at 4th. They're ranked at 4th because they're Penn State. I mean, Penn State looked like garbage against Minnesota. They looked awful. Should have lost. And if they lose that game, they'd still be in the playoff right now. They would not have dropped out of the playoff. They'd probably be at 10 or 11. But they probably shouldn't be in if you're basing it off of the Indiana standard of if you haven't played anybody, your strength of schedule's poor, then 2 losses, you shouldn't be in. Well, Penn State would still be in based off that the brand alone, but Penn State hasn't done anything either. They've done nothing. I mean, really, the only reason Penn State barely lost to Ohio State was because of 2 things. They had the pick 6, and the only other thing is it was at Happy Valley. If Penn State played at Ohio State, probably that game's not as close. I don't think it's as close. I think if Indiana played Ohio State at home, I think it would have been a better game. I think Indiana would have kept it a lot closer. Probably would have lost by 10. I just don't see a big difference between Indiana and Penn State. I do not see a big difference. That's brand bias. Well, Chris C., I agree that based off the score, Indiana got blown out and Penn State played them close. But the issue is that Penn State, okay, Chris, Penn State blows teams out. Indiana almost lost to Michigan. Penn State barely beat Minnesota. Penn State barely beat Illinois. Penn State's not that good. That's not true. I would agree with you, Chris, but that's not true. Penn State beat Minnesota by 1 point on the road. And Penn State's, like Adam said, scored 6 points on offense against Ohio State, and they were at home. If Penn State was in the shoe, they would have gotten beaten by a lot more. That's the difference to me. Indiana played at Ohio State, and honestly, they lost by 16. Ohio State scored a garbage touchdown at the end. Yes, Penn State barely beat USC. That was the other one I was trying to think of. They barely beat USC. They barely beat Minnesota. They barely beat Illinois. They're overrated.
Yeah.
And Drew Aller's not a top quarterback. Just because he's 6'5", 230, and he was a 5-star doesn't mean he's good. I mean, he could get better still, but he's very overrated as well. He's not a fantastic quarterback.
I feel like he's the new era Kirk Cousins, where he does great in the games where no one's really watching, but in the big moments, the big games, he just falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
He pees himself.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a lot of the quarterbacks in this year's, draft they're overrated. A lot of them are. I mean, people have kind of figured out Quinn Ewers is what he is. He's not really taking that next step to get better. So it's just kind of a deal that somebody's got to get drafted. Every year, teams are going to need a quarterback. So, Drew Aller's going to get drafted. Quinn Ewers going to get drafted, and Milroe's going to get drafted. But I mean, are any of them doing that well? Not really. I mean, Shadur's probably going to get taken in the top 10 the way things are going, and Shadur's got issues as well. I mean, he's a great talent, but he's got a lot of physical attributes that do not stack up well for success in the NFL. Definitely could still be good. Cam Ward, a lot of people have said he thrives off chaos. That does not work in the NFL. Even Caleb Williams. Like, Caleb Williams was one of the biggest quarterbacks that we have ever seen that thrived off chaos in college football. He goes to the NFL, and he has nowhere near the same amount of success. Now, obviously, he's on the Bears. That's a problem. But still, you can't thrive off chaos. In the NFL, it's more contained. You have to be in the pocket. You have to be able to make throws. You have to be able to read the defense and be able to not get sacked. It's just you can't just run around and scramble all over the place and hope things break down enough where you can make a play. It doesn't work that way in the NFL as much. It can happen. Mahomes does it. Lamar does it. But you have to be really good to make that happen. Really good. And I don't think any of these quarterbacks in this draft are really portraying it. Now, obviously, usually every draft class, there's one guy that ends up proving people wrong. We'll see who it is. Dylan Gabriel's solid. He is short. He's very short. I don't know. I think if he's pressured a lot, like I think even Curtis Rourke, in my opinion, like at Indiana, I think the biggest limitation on him is that he doesn't have any mobility that much. I mean, he has like slim mobility. It's very slight, but he's not going to be able to get away with that in the NFL. So I think Rourke is a backup at best. So
Indiana has a better loss than Tets, but the Longhorns brand is massive.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how it works. Yeah. I mean, Georgia lost to Ole Miss on the road by 18. Bama lost to Oklahoma by 21. I mean, those are not good losses. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. Georgia almost lost to Kentucky. I mean, I've done this all year. All of these teams have had bad games. All of them. Oregon barely beat Wisconsin. DDR says if Penn State is overrated, how many teams below them should be above them? I mean, that's the problem. Because when you look at all the teams in the top 12, all these teams have flaws. All of them have flaws. And so many of these teams have gotten beat recently. If you had asked me that probably 2 weeks ago, I would have said probably 3 or 4 other teams. But now looking at the way everything's shaping up, you can't put Miami ahead of them. You can't put Indiana ahead of them. You can't put basically any of the SEC teams ahead of them other than Texas, who is ahead of them, because Georgia has 2 losses. Tennessee has 2 losses. All the other SEC teams have 3 losses. You can't rank them ahead of Penn State. So that's why Penn State's where they're at. But I still don't think Penn State's the 4th best team in the country either. But they're ranked there because all the other teams have multiple losses. And the only other 1-loss teams are just not that great, like SMU, Indiana, and Miami, and Notre Dame. I mean, Notre Dame, if they didn't have the Northern Illinois loss, Notre Dame would be ranked above them. But they have the Northern Illinois loss. I think Notre Dame's good, but I don't think they're great.
Oh, yeah, because I remember when I had on Carter Bryant on my Jacksonian episode a few weeks ago, he was like, Notre Dame should not be in the conversation whatsoever because of the Northern Illinois loss. What do you think about when you hear that?
The thing is, that's not how it works, though. Like, I agree that what he basically is saying, that that's an egregious loss. It absolutely is an egregious loss. But we're looking at Notre Dame realistically, and if you're talking, like, if I was talking to Carter Bryant right now, I would say to Carter, I would say, do you think Northern Illinois is a better football team than Notre Dame? If you think that, then there's something just clearly wrong. He's not going to say that. He knows who the better team is. We know who the better team is. Notre Dame is a human, like all the other college football teams out there. They are human. And they were coming off an emotional high at Texas A&M. They played like trash. They overlooked a MAC team. All right? Ever since that loss, Notre Dame's been great. You can't tell me they haven't been great. They've been blowing everybody out, right? Even their big games, Army and Navy, Virginia, Purdue, are these good teams? No, they're not. They're terrible. Just like IU's wins. Bad teams they've played, right? They took care of business, though. All right. If this was a 14 playoff, yeah, Notre Dame would be disqualified. They'd be done with that loss. But it's a 12-team playoff now. And with Ole Miss and Bama and A&M, all these teams having 3 losses, Notre Dame has won. And every other game, they've dominated. So if they beat USC, they're in the playoff. That's a bad take. That is a bad argument. I don't agree with Carter on that at all. I do not. He's validated. I understand where he's coming from, and he has that right to that opinion. If he was in the college football playoff committee, he could leave Notre Dame out. He could do that if he was a part of the committee. But it's absolutely wrong because Notre Dame has completely dominated every other team that they've played. That doesn't mean they're going to win their playoff game, whoever they play, and it doesn't mean that they're actually an elite team. I don't think they are. But with all the chaos that we have seen and how dominant Notre Dame has looked in every game, that one game that they overlooked, Notre Dame's in the playoff. That's just inaccurate, in my opinion. But I understand where he's coming from. I do, but I don't agree.
Well, now we'll get to the point while we wait for callers. And chat, don't forget, the call-in link is in the chat, so you're welcome to come on in to call in, give your take on the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Last thing here, what Steve said, Boise State potentially getting a bye is a joke. I mean, the problem is that the Big 12 just beat up itself. They beat up itself. Colorado, Iowa State, BYU, all of them blew it. They BYU was undefeated, and they would have gotten a good, spot in the playoff, even if they lost in the Big 12 title game. All they had to do was win out. Like, if they win the Big 12 and went undefeated, they're going to get one of the top 4 spots. It's what happens when you win your conference or whatever. But if they had have lost in that title game, they probably still would have been like 8th or 9th. They'd have been fine. The problem is all of them have lost. I mean, Arizona State's in the conversation now. Arizona State, Iowa State, Kansas State, all those teams at the top, BYU, whatever, in the Big 12 just beat up themselves. And I do agree with Steve that Boise State should not get a bye. But see, this is where, and I've said this for probably 2-3 years now when they announced with the 12-team playoff, and I'm pretty sure you agree as well, Jackson. But the bye system is dumb. Most people understand that it is dumb. Because why in the world are you going to have the Big 12 or Mountain West, in the case of Boise, or the ACC title winner being at 3 or 4, where you have Ohio State or whoever, a team like that at 5, or Penn State? That's just insane. I mean, you're going to put Boise State ahead of Penn State in a 12-team playoff just because Boise State is the 4th highest ranked conference champion over the Big 12. That just doesn't even make any sense. I mean, why would you do that? I mean, I get that you won your conference and you want to reward conference title winners, but winning the ACC and winning the Big 12 or the Mountain West is nowhere near as impressive as it is to win the Big 10 or the SEC. Now that realignment has made the SEC and the Big 10, and we've talked about this, that's where all the money is, it's where all the power is, it's where all the best teams are. It just doesn't make sense. If you wanted this system, it would have made a lot more sense to have this system back in the 90s. It doesn't make sense today. The Big 12 and the ACC aren't as good. That's what we had this conversation with Austin before. With Louisville, if Louisville had won the ACC last year, he would have been thrilled if Louisville won the ACC last year, right? If they beat Florida State, even an injured Florida State, they still didn't win. But that's not impressive, though. It's good for Louisville because they don't normally do it, but it's still not impressive because the ACC is not that good. I mean, people mock Clemson all the time for beating up on a bad ACC every single year, but they had 2 championships under Dabo that kind of validated them. But overall, I mean, the ACC is just not good. It's not a good conference right now. And probably never will be again, especially if realignment gets to them too and they lose Clemson or North Carolina or Florida State or whatever. But I mean, you can't do that. You cannot put Ohio State or Penn State or whatever at 5 and then put Boise State at 4. You can't do that. I mean, Boise State's beating Wyoming's and stuff like that by 4. Did you see that last week? Boise State beat Wyoming 17-13. You trying to tell me Boise State's a top 10 team? And again, Boise State hung with Oregon, they say. If they played that now, they would not be as close. It would not be. That's my opinion, though.
Well, and another thing about Boise State too is, again, nostalgia. The big dogs of the 2000s, Boise State.
Yeah, they're not the same at all. I mean, they're not even as good as they were under Brian Harsin. I mean, I take that back. I mean, they probably are as good as they were under Brian Harsin this year, but the last 3 to 5 years, they have not. They have not been as good as they were even under Brian Harsin. And probably this year, but still, I mean, they have not looked that good in a few games. I gave them a pass against UNLV because UNLV is like decent the way they played that game, but there's no reason that they struggled against Wyoming. That's unacceptable. Wyoming stinks. And I agree with Steve, too. I mean, why do they have all the power?
I hate that it's only on ESPN. And why do they have it on a Monday? It should be on a Saturday night. And here's an idea. The Saturday NFL playoff games should be on at noon and 3:30. And you air the national championship at, okay, so I'm on Eastern time, so it's 7:30 my time, 8:30 your time. Problem solved. Boom. And then you have like the pregame lady doing the shimmy at 8 p.m. So
yeah,
or it's like, oh my god.
I mean, I don't get into monopolies, man. I mean, it's the same thing with like businesses. You want competition, you know. You want competition. You don't want like one grocery store, one hardware store. You want competition, or one pharmacy. You want multiple different, options. Lowers prices because of the fact you're going to have that competition. You got to keep prices low. Or if your competitor is lowering the prices, you're going to go out of business. That's the way it works.
Yeah.
Right. So it's better to have competition. And it's the same way with this. If you have Fox and ESPN and NBC or whatever all having power over this, then it evens itself out, and you're not having an advantage, one way. I mean, I'm not saying that that's why the SEC has all of the brand bias in the first place because of ESPN, especially now with ESPN having the contract, Fox being Big Ten and everything. I'm not saying that that's the biggest reason, but I do think it plays somewhat of a part, though. Right? I mean, I don't think it plays all the part because, I mean, the SEC has had bias for a long time. Ever since the Pac-12 or Pac-10 kind of gave up its supremacy as the best conference back in the 2000s, the SEC kind of took over as the best league ever since because the SEC's won like 19 of the last 24 national championships. It is the best conference. No one's disagreeing with that. But at the same time, you still have to base things fairly and rank things as fairly as you can. Rankings are flawed. Even Marcus said that rankings are flawed. Even the CFP rankings are flawed. They're human beings. We're all human beings. We're ranking these teams. It's not going to be perfect. But you can't be biased, though. You cannot be biased. Once you start being biased, that's an issue. And I do think ESPN having all the power doesn't necessarily help. It would probably alleviate some of that bias if you had the other networks involved somewhat. But it isn't going to happen. I don't think ESPN is ever going to relinquish their power over it. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, even look at March Madness, right? With like CBS and all that, with TNT, they have the March Madness games. The only difference with that, though, is not a lot of college basketball is played on CBS. Yeah. In those networks. They, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they don't. ESPN has so much power over football because they broadcast 80% of games. But when it comes to college basketball, CBS, they don't do a lot of regular season games. They do like 10 to 15 games. It's not a lot. So when it comes to, tournament time, it just doesn't seem that biased. But maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, you would think college football would take a page from the NFL and March Madness, but hopefully they'll learn this lesson. But they're slowly learning.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll wait and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But playoff ranking time over for now because we got the call-in link for those that are wanting to call in. And while we wait, we're going to discuss our top 5 Iron Bowls of all time. Jeffrey, you start. Oh, my IT guy said hey to you, Jeffrey.
Well, say it again.
My IT guy said, hey, Jeffrey.
Oh, hey, I appreciate it. Jackson's IT guy. I appreciate it. Always love a good shout out from Jackson's IT guy. He's the best. Appreciate it.
Hey, he's the guy that makes things happen because without my dad / my IT guy, none of this is happening.
No, I mean he's amazing. I mean I owe a lot to people that have helped me as well. I mean it's like it's not easy doing this stuff, man. It's hard. It's hard to set up YouTube and do all this kind of stuff. So I appreciate everybody that's helped as well. But yeah, like you said, the Iron Bowl, man. I mean I gotta think because obviously the games
That's
that
the fun part.
the games that I've been alive for. You're gonna go into the past and all the history because you've looked on YouTube and like study this stuff. I've seen some of the past games. I've studied them too a little bit, but way more than I do. So I'm just gonna go for the games when I've been alive. Obviously, the game again with Bond catching the pass in the end zone last year, and then Ja'Cory Brooks catching the pass back in 2021 on the opposite sides of the end zone at Auburn to help Bama get in the playoff. You can't beat that, right? Like, those are on there. Those are on there for me.
Godfather.
Yeah.
Sorry, Godfather brings up some very good ones. 1985, the kick, and Coach Bryant's 315th victory. And fun fact, though, Keith Jackson called both those games.
No, man, Keith Jackson is such a legend, man.
Because it was like last night, Austin and I were talking about how like the Iron Bowl should be on CBS all the time, where Austin was talking about how he's got so much nostalgia for it being on CBS. Well, there was a time where a lot of people had so much nostalgia for like Keith Jackson calling the Alabama Auburn. I mean, hell, I'll bring up the fact for 1984, Al Michaels called the 1984 Iron Bowl for the Wrong Way Bow game. So that was a pretty fun one right there. I mean, we had a crappy year in 84. I mean, y'all want to talk about crappy years? That was a legitimate crappy year. But we ended it with a bang, with a victory against Auburn. But Jeffrey, you continue with your top 5.
Yeah, I would also have to go with, I was little, but 09 as well, the 2009 season. Man, Alabama getting the win over Auburn in a close game that, solidified, that they were going to be in the BCS. And they beat LSU that year in 2009. That was epic as well. So that game, the 2009 Iron Bowl, the two close wins recently for Alabama over Auburn. Trying to go back. Because, I mean, a lot of the other games really haven't been that good. I mean, like, I don't want to say that top 5 and 2 of them are the losses, but hey, I mean, I got to give credit to the comeback game in 2010 and the kick 6 in 2013. Those were great games. Obviously, we didn't win, and they were heartbreaking losses, the comeback game and the kick 6. But honestly, if you're going to go the top 5 game, if you're going to say my top 5 Iron Bowls that I was entertained, that I enjoyed the game despite whoever won, it would be the 09 game, the comeback game 2010, the kick 6, and then the 2 close wins for Bama in 2021 and 2023. I mean, if you're going to go all wins, I mean, you could go with some of the beatdowns. Like, I enjoyed the 2020 beatdown or the 2018 beatdown, but like those games weren't interesting. So the 5 that I enjoyed the most, despite losing 2 of them, would be the ones that I already stated, in my opinion, that I was alive for. But you're gonna go with the annals, so go ahead with the history.
Yeah, yeah. The top 5 for me, I stated it on Monday, and I know like number 1 for me is the 1948 Iron Bowl, where we resumed the rivalry after 41 years. We didn't play the game in World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, a little bit after World War II, until 1948. We smacked their butts 48 to not 48, 55 to nothing in that game. It was an amazing game right there. Let me see. So I had there was, let's see. Yeah, 1981 Coach Bryant's 315th victory, where that was a classic against Auburn. I did put I think I had the kit sits on there because, I mean, that's got to be on the top 5 Iron Bowl list. I was torn between Run in the Mud, 1967, and Pump Bama Punt, but I mean, Run in the Mud edges out Pump Bama Punt. 1964, the first televised Iron Bowl game, and that was the first game where Shug Jordan, the Auburn coach at that time, called it the Iron Bowl, and it was televised on NBC, and it's memorable for where Ray Ogden raced the length of the field for a touchdown. And you got 1961, where the Alabama Crimson Tide smacked Auburn off the face of the earth to clinch their national championship for the 1961 season. But you ask, what about the Sugar Bowl against Arkansas? Well, back in 61, bowl games didn't count, unfortunately. Bowl games started to count in 1965. And we got an amazing caller. He is on CFB After Dark, and he is a friend of the Voice of College Football Network. He is friend Sean Garner. How you doing tonight, good buddy?
Oh, fantastic, Jackson. Where'd Jeffrey scamper off to?
Oh, I'm still here.
He's here, man. No worries.
see, a lot of people don't know this. People think Jackson must just read a lot about college football and stuff and scour it. The truth is, he's actually a vampire, and he's 122 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't pretend
and
like
he
I know that much history, man. Jackson's
and he remembers all of this stuff by firsthand, by sight. Like, you know, he remembers watching Hazel and Gunsmoke in the 50s. You know.
I watched Gunsmoke, but I watched it in the 2010s and 2020s. I didn't watch it in the 50s, 60s.
No, if you realize Jackson is always in a very dark room whenever he does these. Is that right? Am I wrong about that?
I'm in a very light room.
Oh my god!
Yeah. So I mean, Jackson, which one are you? Team Edward or Jacob? You had to declare a blood loyalty at one point, right? So which one?
I don't think I've had to choose a blood loyalty at that point. I'm gonna have to study a lot about foreign countries, and I'm gonna have to really look at all the prime ministers of each country and look at like all the coaches of the world. Then I'm like really good to go on Jeopardy. I've got the wagering process down. Just like do what James Holzhauer did, like do the little push, or just here's a way. If I were to ever go on there, I would just bet 12,199. Why go those numbers? Those are Tom Brady numbers.
Yeah, number 12, pick number 199.
Yep.
You'd have to get that many dollars in order to bet that much, so that's not easy.
Well, and plus 12 is the number of Joe Namath, Kenny Stabler, Pat Trammell, and Greg McElroy, and a few other quarterbacks.
Right.
Yep. So it's like it's a winner's number right there. So, Shaw, what's on your mind tonight for the Alabama Crimson Tide?
It was interesting. I'm actually watching the Crimson Tide Rutgers basketball game here right now.
Oh, yeah, that's on tonight, isn't it? What's up?
It's on TNT. It's nothing much. It's a 29-28 game with 5.5 left in the first half. So
TNT, we know drama. TNT, we know drama.
Let's see if this game has any drama. I don't know if Rutgers has much of a team this year.
They have 2 5-star freshmen and Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. That's it. They got those 2 guys. And unfortunately, the amount of money they had to pay to get those 2 guys, they lost basically the rest of their team to the portal. So, yeah, I mean, they're a 2-trick pony. And unfortunately, having 2 5-star freshmen, these days in college basketball is not the best approach. You want to have seniors and experience.
Oh, I mean, like it seems like it seems like a horrible approach because they could both be gone to the NBA next year, right? And then what do you have? You have like no foundation, no program at all. And
the only way that it worked was when you were like Duke and Kentucky with Calipari, and still Duke doing it with Krzyzewski, now John Shire, where you replace them with 5-star freshmen every year. But Rutgers isn't going to do that. The only reason they got Dylan Harper at all was because he was the younger brother of Ron Harper Jr., who was at Rutgers for 4 years. They convinced him to go, and then Dylan Harper said, the only way I'm going to sign is if Ace Bailey comes too, and he did. But that's it. And then they had to give him a lot of money because, I mean, when Ron Harper Jr. was there, he was not a highly rated guy. He just went to Rutgers because no one else gave him a chance. He did well, but Dylan Harper's younger brother was a 5-star freshman. It's just a complicated thing, but it's definitely not set up for Rutgers to succeed at all, and they have no future because, I mean, they have nothing going for them in the recruiting, ranks for the next season.
Yeah, well, that's interesting to hear. I mean, like, I guess they're probably just a desperate athletic program at this point.
And they've gotten better under Steve Peichel, but I mean, he was getting like low-rated guys that wanted to prove themselves, and then this year it's the opposite approach of these two guys, and I don't know, they're just average. It's about the best they can do. Rutgers just doesn't have the money.
Well, I mean, it really seems like Rutgers could have taken advantage over the last several years during when a lot of the New York schools, St. John's, Seton Hall, Seton Hall's in New Jersey too, but like the more traditional programs in that region were down. But they never did, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's not cool to go to a state school up there, maybe. I don't know. But Rutgers they've got the opposite problem in basketball that they have in football program. There's too many quality programs in that area for them to, they can't pick up all the talent. In football, they're the only Division I or power conference program for 200 miles, but there's just no talent in that area. There's tons of basketball talent, but it's too competitive.
It's Georgetown. All the guys in Washington, D.C. end up going to Maryland, or they go to Duke or something. They do not stay at Georgetown. No. Or stay in D.C. for Georgetown. They go to Maryland, or they go to Duke, or some great program in college basketball. I mean, Georgetown is a mess. I mean, that is just a joke of a program right now. It's sad because they used to be good. I mean, even when I was a kid, they weren't bad when they had Roy Hibbert and stuff. They were all right still even then. Not as good as they were in the 80s with John Thompson and Patrick Ewing, but they were decent and ranked and actually still had an impact in college basketball. But the last 10 years have been a mess. I think the last season they were any good was 2013. They haven't been any good since.
It's funny. I remember watching the Dikembe Mutombo. Unfortunately, I mean, him passing away. That was a horrible night for me when I heard he passed away. I remember he's just an amazing human being.
Yeah, it's
Dikembe Mutombo, but then I actually watched a little feature on him, and I guess he was just a student at Georgetown, and John he just went there to study in America and eventually go to medical school. That was the whole plan. And then John Thompson just saw him walking around on campus and asked if he wanted to play, and then told him to get into the gym. And lo and behold, he becomes one of the best defensive players in NBA history. It's
kind of sad that stories that will never happen again.
You don't think so?
Not like that. I mean, right? I mean, because a lot of players these days, even if they don't play basketball until they're 15 or 16, they end up starting to do it because of the fact that they want, to have a lot of success, or get, a lot of money if possible. Back in the 80s, 70s, and 60s, basketball players didn't even get paid that much. So a lot of guys just didn't do it. it was just a different time.
It's
different. A lot of people, like everybody wants to play sports now for obvious reasons. I mean, especially football, basketball, you make a killing if you go pro. Yeah. You just didn't have that back then. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just I don't think stories like that would happen as often or hardly ever. Maybe it could still happen, maybe, but not often.
I mean, like, I mean, like even in that era, a story like that's like bizarre, like unheard of. Like, but yeah, I mean, like even for sports that that the general public doesn't pay any attention to at all, there's an insane amount of competition and pressure put on kids at a very young age.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, I've been around the sport of wrestling my whole life. No one, I mean, I guess you can go to the UFC now and make some money if you're like really great. But there's never been any money in this. Mm-hmm. But some of these parents, like, their whole identity gets wrapped up in how
kind of like those parents on Varsity Blues where they're riding the coattails of their kids.
Well, you see all the time on social media. You'll have like a kid who's in like 7th grade playing basketball, and then they have like their parents have accounts on Twitter too, and they're just gassing up their kid the whole time. And there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think, as long as
I think there's a lot wrong with that personally.
If you don't go overboard with it, it's all right when you're like, oh, look how great my son played. But you can't go too far with it though.
You can't say
like you gotta let kids be kids. You gotta let them just play. I mean, not everybody's good for one.
Don't be saying your kid's gonna whoop LeBron's butt or.
Well, I mean, like Bronny James. Well, it's obvious with him because LeBron, but still, like he was getting offers in 7th grade for Division I schools. It's like you didn't have that back then. Back in the past, you just played 7th grade ball. You weren't even thinking about college. You're just playing, having fun with your teammates. Now it's all like in the future, you got to do visits and it just build your brand, whatever repertoire. It's just too much. It's just way too much on players and kids. But we've all done this to ourselves though, with the way sports have progressed, with how much money is involved with it and how much social media has made people's lives all be involved in it. We're like, oh, I'm at Taco Bell and I'm eating Taco Bell tonight, let me post it online, just stuff like that. I mean, you didn't have that back then. Obviously, I think it made people's mental health a lot better. I mean, people's mental health has never been worse, and it's been never been as bad as it is right now. I think social media has a lot to do with it, and I don't think a lot of just people seeing a bunch of depressing stuff online all day makes people feel good about the world. It doesn't.
No, and I mean, like even seeing people post like positive things. That people can start to resent that too. Like, oh, I'm posting, pictures of me in Tuscany. Oh, here's me at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and isn't my life amazing? Like, a lot of the people that are clicking like and heart on that secretly kind of hate you.
Yeah,
but, I mean, it's not. I mean, like it's. I mean, and then people are always trying to one up and win. It's
who has it worse the most?
You'll see like YouTube videos where like some famous person buys like a new sports car or something like that, and people are watching that video and it's like that's cool and all that, but like you said, secretly people are like pissed. I can't believe they got another car.
I know, right?
But I mean that's the thing though. Like my biggest thing is that we all know that the world has a lot of problems, and we know that there's things going on everywhere every day that are bad, and there are good things too, but we see it all now. We see it on the internet. Everything that goes viral. We know what's going on. Even if you're just sitting in your home, you don't even have to leave your couch to know what's going on all around the world. Like, you don't know everything, but you know a lot. And that's the problem.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. You know a lot less than you think you do.
Yes, you only know a fraction of it.
I mean, like, well, and you only know it from, know a small bit of it from, from one perspective or a couple perspectives that are likely very biased. And sometimes like they're directly engineered. Like, some of these countries develop like bot farms to try to like influence public opinion in a certain way. Or they hire, certain agents to pose as people to give people, a false impression of what's going on in the world.
It's like a marketer. You're basically marketing a country just like you market a business. I mean, you have marketers that say, "Oh, this company's the greatest company ever," and they're really not. But they're just gaslighting you into thinking that it's so great and that all the products they sell are legit and they're fantastic and they treat their employees so well. Well, they actually don't, but we're going to tell you that we do. It's just, I agree, it's the same thing. Like a lot of countries are really messed up. But our country's fantastic. It's great.
But like like some of these countries like will hire people. Will build like fake accounts, pose as like American. I'm Sydney, a 22-year-old cute college girl from Bessemer, Alabama. And I go to UAB or whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And then, they subtly kind of put in like information like, oh, isn't this politician great? Isn't this, or I don't know, like they'll start to follow you. And then and then they employ tons and tons of these people to do things like this. And stuff like that, subtly just kind of moves. Like so much of what you see on social media is just such garbage.
Oh yeah,
it is faker than you can even imagine.
It's getting worse too, but the worse it's getting seem to believe it more, which is ironic. I think it's just because you're just constantly pumped with it. That's the problem. When you see something again and again, that's why I don't remember who said it, but I heard somebody say one time, it was like a radio host or something. They said something in the nature of that when somebody says something once, like you don't really pay attention to it. You don't really you hear it, but it doesn't really register. Someone says it twice and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. But you say it 3 or more times, you're actually gonna hear it and listen and see actually what that person said. Like, and that's the way social media works. You see it once, it's not going to really affect you, but you just keep seeing it again and again and again. Eventually, you're either just going to believe it or you're just going to get turned off by it. It's what you one of two responses because you get sick of seeing it again and again, but it's going to get your attention, though. One time's not enough, though.
No, and here's a problem with this, too. We are all like complete newbies on this, really, to begin with. None of us have been trained in any ability to how to spot like good information from bad information, real accounts from fake accounts on social media at all. Like we are all like, it's all like we're taking our first swing at the bat, at the batter's plate. And no one's ever taught us how to swing a baseball bat. Like, that's our whole society is just complete novices trying to, so obviously, it's an interesting time, and I hope in the future that there's some sort of social media training for kids at a pretty young age too, because
I don't know what you can do to help, like whether you just prevent a kid from under the age of 10 from being on it at all, or if you do have like you said, like monitoring, like they do kind of have monitoring things, but no parents even do it. They don't.
But here's the thing, I don't even think you can prevent like your kids from being exposed to junk, unless you go like really extreme with it and you just don't have electronics
at all, right?
No.
I mean, I was born at a different time too. I mean, I'm not old, but I mean, I remember a time when you can't play video games for longer than 2 hours, and like I was playing like the old NES system, I didn't even have any of the new systems. I was playing like an older family member's NES, and like you can't.
You're playing Tech. Were you playing Tecmo? Super Bowl,
Tecmo, and Duck Hunt, and Super Mario Brothers, and Zelda, and all that junk. Like those old games. It's like that's not brain rot, but like still didn't want me to play it more than a couple hours because I don't play it. My family wanted me to go outside and play, be a kid, and be exposed to vitamin D in the sun and other people and play basketball and other things like that. But I still would play video games, but like that's that kind of stuff. Now today, people are just playing like hyper realistic games and VR where they got it on their head for it's just I'm
not against any of that stuff, but you should be aware. You should be like I think there's a lot of benefits to playing these games. Playing video games, I think it develops your problem solving abilities better. You your collaborative teamwork abilities. Sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of really, really good things that can come out of playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
There's also some downsides to it too. Like you're not getting outside. You're not exercising. You're having a warped view of a social life because you think like talking to someone like we're doing right now, like that's a substitute for going outside and going out to parties and like actually meeting people in real life. It's not. It's not at all.
So many people actually struggle with that. I mean, like, I've talked to people in like grocery stores and, other places that
definitely.
Especially when the pandemic was going on, like they hadn't been out of the house in like a year and they couldn't even talk to people. They were like nervous to talk to me. And I'm like, okay, I can talk to you guys just fine on here. But when I'm talking to people in real life around me, I do just as well. I have no problem.
Yeah. I would fully expect that.
But I know so many people that do, and it saddens me because of the fact that they shouldn't be that way. But the pandemic didn't help, or some of them do like playing video games a lot, like hours on end, and they don't go outside. Like I play video games for maybe an hour, maybe at max, a day or 30 minutes, and that's it. Like I don't do any more than that because I want to get outside. But I'm just different. I mean,
no, I mean it's
well.
It's one hell. It's one hell of a problem. I mean, I realize, like, if I go to a store, let's say I go to a fast food restaurant. Not that I would ever eat fast food, of course, right? but like you say, you go to a place where some of the servers are younger people, like 18 and under.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed in the past like 4 years. Just the quality of engagement with the people that work, like it seems like they're almost afraid to talk to you. I mean, it really does. I'll be like, hey, I'm a human being that wants to give you money. hey. I mean, like it can, and then like they just do enough to get through the interaction. There's no engagement. There's no even avenue opening for any conversation whatsoever, and it's a bummer. And I'm not angry even at the kids. I'm like, why? Because it happens so often. I can't get mad at each and every one of these kids. But it's like, what is going on here? Because like they don't have any. They're not comfortable at all talking to anyone a little bit old. I'm not even that significantly older than them, but like.
Yeah.
Like what? Do I have fangs or something showing? Come on. No.
I think the biggest thing is like I've seen like I love old media, so like me and Jackson watch like the Gunsmokes and Riflemen and stuff like that all the time on BTV. But I mean, I like some of them are cheesy and they got some bad jokes at times that haven't aged well. But 80s movies, man, 80s movies.
I'm still here, guys. I'm still listening, but I have to mute myself for a second.
Absolutely. 80s movies are like the pinnacle, though, of like teen movies, right? Like the 80s. Yeah. There's so many teen movies from the 80s. And yeah, they're not like realistic to what all kids are, even in that time period. But I do feel
like adults.
Yeah, I do. Well, yeah, that was the biggest problem. They always would actually cast people that were older. Now I will say the John Hughes movies, though, most of them actually were the age of the characters, ironically. They were one of the only ones that were. But a lot of the other movies, you'd have like 24-year-olds playing 17-year-olds. You really had that in the 90s. Like stuff like Dawson's Creek, or One Tree Hill. Those shows, the characters were older than what they were in the show. But like the 80s movies, like St. Elmo's Fire or Pretty in Pink, those movies, the characters were the age. My point, though, is about the characters in those films, though, in the past, were they were more outgoing. You would have characters engaging with just a bunch of people, and like they're at parties and they're talking with a bunch of people. And not everybody's like that. You had shy people in the 80s. You had shy people in the 70s. But if you were shy, you were an outlier. You were not the norm. And I agree with you, Sean. Like, I can go to a grocery store, like every single one of them, none of them are talking. Like, none of them want to engage. And that's the biggest issue. It's like it's not a rarity. It seems to be more of the norm. Not everyone's like that, but it is more than 50% by far. And it is frustrating because you want to build connections and you want to talk to people. Whether you actually are gonna like someone like of my age is younger that maybe want to engage the person more, but someone like you're older, you're just wanting to talk to them, to pass your time while you're there, but they just don't reply.
Or I even just want like friendly customer service, not like, what do you want? Here you go. Like no. I mean, like that's like I'm just like
like friendly customer service these days. If you get like a response with like 4 words instead of 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So
sorry, Jack.
We have gone down a very pleasurable rabbit hole here, but can we bring this back to sports?
Yeah, like the Iron Bowl, for example. I mean, I think it's on ABC.
Can Alabama win? That's crazy. Better than they did against Oklahoma.
That I never remember a single time the Iron Bowl wasn't on CBS ever.
Oh yeah, we were talking about a little while ago where it's like people, had so much nostalgia for Keith Jackson calling the Iron Bowl. Where it's
I have no memory of that at all. Yeah,
that's what YouTube's for.
No,
yeah, like me and Jackson have said, like Brad Nessler, right, and Gary Damson, a downgrade from going from Bama, Auburns, and stuff like that, and Bama, Texas A&M to Penn State, Purdue.
Oh yeah,
such a downgrade.
Well, on Bryce, that we're gonna hear Shamadonna call the Iron Bowl, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a good. That's a good. I would appreciate that. I mean, I'm going to have to hear Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt call every
week, Sean. Every week.
I know. But they're going to be broadcasting every Ohio State Michigan game now for the next like 20 years.
They'll be like 70 and they're still doing it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, they definitely will. Why wouldn't they? And I don't necessarily like dislike them at all. It's like, it does, Gus. And I don't know what it is about Klatt. He's so inconsistent with his takes. It always feels like he has an agenda to push for some reason. And sometimes it's pro. Sometimes I'm pro his side. Sometimes I'm against it. But it's just like it's all over the place. Like it feels like he's getting like directive orders from management sometimes.
Well, like I've noticed like people saying around 4 years ago that Joel Klatt was like their favorite, and now people are just all over the place with him. Like people used to say he was their favorite or second favorite.
Well, I mean, it really feels like people like I don't think anybody ever nowadays stays like a broadcasting legend. Like they don't stay top of like no one stays in good graces with the public for too long because like Tony Romo when he first came out, like everyone was
I liked him a lot. I still do.
Yeah, but then he went from being like America's the top commentator in the NFL to everyone's least favorite.
Well, no one's saying Tom Brady's their favorite, so he never started.
No. and honestly, like the thing is, like I think I've always hated this transition, this automatic transitions of jock to the booth, because there are so many people that I find like way more interesting to listen to talk about, talk about football than former football players. Mm-hmm. Like if I watch NFL Live, if Mina Kimes isn't on, I'm probably not going to watch. I really like I really like her insight, her analysis. I like, and I do like some football players. Some of the players they have on there, like I just like. I would rather, I would rather eat a pound of strawberries than listen to fucking this person talk. For now, Tom Brady's one of those. I've only listened to like maybe I probably listened to a total of maybe of an hour of him calling games this year, and it's bad. I mean, you're not good.
I feel like you have to have the voice to commentate a 3-hour game, and Tom Brady does not. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know, Sean. You know, like listening to me and Jackson. Like, I don't know. Like, if you would say, "Hey, Jeffrey, you've got the voice to commentate a 3-hour game."
I think you guys both have great voices for what you do.
Oh, I appreciate it.
You guys have a good dynamic. And I would love to listen to you guys. I would love to listen to you guys. Jackson would definitely be the play-by-play, and you would definitely be the color commentator. Jeffrey. That's unquestioned.
The color.
Godfather of SC brings up some amazing commentators. John Forney and Dudley. I remember hearing John Forney call some classic games like 1979 Alabama Auburn. I heard him call in 1971 Alabama USC on Bama's greatest games, and I saw him talking. Yes, he brings up Tom Roberts on the sidelines. Where like I remember watching Tom Roberts talking with John Forney on those Bama's greatest games VHS tapes from when I was little. Like those were so much fun watching those guys.
But those guys, I mean, in the past were so good and they had the voice for it. And not all of them were players, right? Like, I think that's kind of Deshaun's point is that you take like me and you, Jackson, we were not football players, right? And we're not football players. It's harder to break into the industry now than it ever has been because so many of the positions are getting filled by ex-players or ex-coaches. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, not all of them are good. Not all of them are good. Some of them are really good. But some of them aren't.
No. Yeah. And there are definitely sometimes people that, weren't in the game that could do a much better job than people that, were there. Yeah. And like you even look around the NFL, like how many of the coaches played past, college at all? Very few. Very few. And I mean, like some of them, like, did Mike McDaniel ever play? I mean, I don't know. He doesn't look like a football player to me, so I don't know.
I would say that he didn't, but do not fact check me on that one.
Like some of these guys, like Kenny Dillingham might, he's one of the top coaches of the year here. I know for a fact he didn't play in college, and he started coaching in high school because I think he got hurt his senior year, so he couldn't even play his senior year of high school football. And so, I mean,
the thing is, like, some people say you can't be a coach or you can't be a commentator if you haven't played the game. Because I've read threads like that of people saying, oh, you cannot commentate a game if you didn't play. And it's like, okay, we watch the games. Like me, you, all three of us watch so much football. Do we know the locker room? I don't know the locker room. I've never been in a locker room on a team.
I played through my senior. I played from fourth grade through my senior year of high school, so I did play.
Awesome. Yeah, I did. I've played football.
Yeah. So cool. I mean, I've been involved with contact sports since I was like 5 years old because I played rugby and I wrestled and stuff. So I have a little bit of a history with this. Like I know. I mean, I might, but I don't know more than you could probably learn in like a year. You know what I mean? It's not like that specific. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't know more than you. I don't know more from my time playing football that you couldn't learn pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. You couldn't learn these things about the game. Like you probably know what a 3 technique is, right? Like a 3 technique, or the difference between a 1 gap and a 2 gap technique, right? it's not that complicated.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to play the sport to know. If you read about it, it's like some people, like you have like the car industry and people that have like a dad or an uncle or whatever, grandfather's a mechanic, and then you learn from him. You don't have to have that though. You could be somebody that has nobody in your family who's ever done anything with cars at all whatsoever, and then you're a mechanic. Or you talk about cars. Like, you don't have to be a mechanic. You can just learn about cars. You know where the spark plugs are. You know where the engine is. You know where the radiator is, the transmission is, the alternator, the starter, the windshield wiper, all that stuff. And you know why I'm listening to all this stuff? Because I like reading about cars, but I've never worked on cars. I don't know much, like how to put together a car, but I like reading about cars. But
if like my engine was stalling out and stuff, I could probably call you and say, "Hey, Jeffrey, can you listen to this and tell me what might be wrong?" Like, there's a good chance you'll know, right?
Absolutely.
Whereas
that's the major thing. Like you do just because like me and Jackson didn't play. I can't say Jackson might have played football, but I know I haven't. But like I know a lot about football. There are people that know way more than me. There's people that know probably way more than you, Sean, and you know more than I do.
No one knows more about football than me. What the hell are you talking about? Come on, no one.
But yeah,
okay, Sean's at the top. Sean's at the top.
Yep.
Yeah. That Saban guy is pretty close, but I still think
we got Uncle Charles saying, "What's up, panel? What's up to my Alabama brothers and sisters? How you doing tonight, Uncle Charles? Thank you for tuning in to tonight's show." And Sean,
is Uncle Charles looking forward to seeing nieces and nephews this weekend?
Nah. He just loves Alabama football. We're one big family. But anyway, what's your score prediction for Alabama Auburn?
This weekend, jeez, it's in Tuscaloosa, right? It feels like I don't know. Auburn's got a pretty decent defense. Like they're solid. I think they'll be able to keep it close for a while. I think it'll be relatively close, but Alabama will end up winning. Let's say 34-23, something like that. I think it'll be interesting into the fourth quarter here. Auburn, I don't know. I mean, that game against A&M is so weird to me. The way both of these teams are so all over the place. It's hard to really have too much confidence in any score prediction, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is like people talk about who's better. A&M is a better football team than Auburn, but Auburn beat them. Auburn still lost to Cal. We saw last year Auburn lose to New Mexico State, and they almost beat Alabama. Should have won, but Alabama converted on the 4th and 31. I mean, football is a weird sport. The better team does not always win. And Alabama is a better team than Auburn, but we saw Bama just get shellacked by Oklahoma. I'm not confident at all. But if we get the Bama that we got against Missouri and LSU, they'll beat Auburn. But we don't know if we will or not.
Yeah.
They've been all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Godfather says Charles one of the funniest guys you'll ever talk with. I can't wait to talk to Uncle Charles. It's going to be awesome.
Uncle Charles, hop on the Alabama show.
Come on in, Uncle Charles.
Come on. There's a stream. The link's right in the chat here. Jackson posts it all the time, so it never actually leaves.
Jackson has all the links, man. He's the link master.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Speaking of which, what magic have you got going on this week, Sean? And what did you say your score prediction was for Alabama and Auburn?
I said 34-23.
34-23. Oh.
Didn't I say 34-17, Jackson, or did I say 34-20?
I think so. And oh, wow. That's the same score our buddy Kyle Loomis had. 31-23, Alabama.
Sean had 34.
34.
So he gave him an extra field goal. Yeah, extra field goal. We're all in kind of the same ballpark. I mean, it's Bama should win. But that Oklahoma game just shakes my confidence. To be honest, that was one of the worst games I've ever seen in my life. I mean, just how bad they played. It was terrible.
Oh God! I just
no one expected that at all.
I kind of felt bad for you guys watching that. I felt your pain. Your guys is specifically you two. Your pain. I felt Johnny Burke's, cringing watching, and I'm like, you know what? Like I'm neutral. I didn't care who won the game. But I wanted to see something interesting, and that was interesting. But I was kind of cringing. Like this is just abysmal.
It's like I told Jackson when we did the post-game show on Saturday night, if Alabama had lost a game like A&M lost at Auburn or something like that, where they competed and went back and forth, maybe they didn't play their best, but they fought hard, and Oklahoma just played the game of their life. And and they barely lost like 35-31 or something like that. It would still sting. It would still be like, I cannot believe in a game they had to have, they blew it like that. But that's not what we got. Bama just sucked. I mean, they got destroyed. And like Milrose 3 picks, and they let Oklahoma's quarterback run for over 100 yards. And all Oklahoma did was just run the ball all game. They didn't even pass because Alabama didn't stop the run.
That's the crazy thing is, like, they beat you the same way Vanderbilt beat you. Yeah. Like the same way. Running like the same kind of offense, the same, option, single wing, and I mean there just were no answers for it.
I remember Alabama holding Leonard Fournette to 10 rushing yards. That's the Bama run defense that I'm used to. Not allowing Jackson Arnold to run for over 100 yards. It's not like Jackson Arnold's Michael Vick or anything.
We got.
Look at the defensive linemen Alabama's put in to the NFL over the years. Yeah, the Marcel Darius, the Jonathan Allen, Ashawn Robinson. I'm going to miss guys, because there are so many.
Mm-hmm.
Like this was just a brick wall that you could not. Mm-hmm. You couldn't line up, and you would have to get creative to find ways to run the football.
You couldn't run the ball basically at all, and then you had to get the ball out quick, because you'd get sacked if you held it too long, so then you couldn't pass it downfield. I mean, it made it so tough to even do anything. But now Alabama is, it's been creeping up even toward the end of Saban. Like, I remember the Florida game a couple years ago where they let the Florida quarterback run for like 200 yards. But that guy was really good at running the ball, though. It was the guy before Anthony Richardson. Who was that guy? I can't remember.
It wasn't Kyle Trask. No, there was somebody in between them.
It was someone in between, but that guy, what I'm talking about, though, is that
Felipe Franks? Was that it? No.
Who was that guy? They had a quarterback, though, but it was I think it was that 2021 game where the quarterback ran for like over 200 yards on Alabama. And that was like the first game with Nick Saban where I was like, okay, Alabama is not doing as well on run defense. They're allowing way too much. Emory Jones, that was it. Emory Jones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
He had the game of his life. It was that 31-29 game in 2021.
I of all people should remember that. Emory Jones, Cincinnati Bearcats bum.
Yeah, he had the game of his life against Bama. He ran all over.
Well, and before we let you go to our next caller, Sean, what's been your top 3 Iron Bowls of all time according to you?
Okay, so I'm just going to go with games that I've seen. And unfortunately, they're probably all going to be Auburn victories. I don't know why.
And back in the kick six.
and the 2017 wide right game. Yeah. Those, I don't think anything. It has been weird. It feels like almost in last year's game would probably be number 4. Like it's probably
the 2 at the end of the game catches by Ja'Cory Brooks and Isaiah Bond in 2021 and 2023 were epic, but nothing beats the kick six. Nothing beats the kick six, and that's coming from me. I love Alabama to death, and I hated that game with a passion, but it was an epic game.
No, I think about the a lot of the iconic plays in the history of college football.
Mm.
It grows up in a little bit different era, but I saw that Flutie Hail Mary growing up every week. I must have seen that play like 300, 400 times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
The same with the Stanford band play.
Oh man, the play is epic, man.
It doesn't feel like college football markets its history quite as well now as it used to. Because I mean, like there were certain plays.
The history, I'll do it.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. That's right. You know, some network paid Jackson huge money, and he'll dig up. He'll dig up footage from old games that you can just indoctrinate a new generation of college football fans.
Yeah, get like the first Kodak moment in football history, 1890.
But I feel like the moment of the 2010s is that kick six. Mm-hmm. Like if you had to say that a snapshot, like pick one play per decade, which is the iconic play of that decade. Mm-hmm. I think that's the one I would choose. That was unreal watching it live because we were resigned to it going to overtime. Mm-hmm. Bama goes on this, unexpectedly, like puts like a couple big plays together. Oh my God, Bama! Oh, they have a chance to actually kick a walk-off field goal here, because they got the ball back with like 20 seconds. No one thought they were going to do anything with it. I'm like, oh, they have a chance. No, but they said like, they haven't. It was like a 58-yard attempt, and they hadn't attempted anything close to that the entire season, and thought, okay, they're probably just going to try a Hail Mary, but then they tried the kicker out, and then he kicks it, and it lands about like 3 yards short, and you see Chris Davis catch the ball, and then you watch him go up the sidelines, and like you can tell almost right away he's probably going to take this to the house. There was no coverage on that sideline whatsoever. I'm like, it felt like it was moving in slow motion. Like, oh my God, he's going to take this, isn't he? He's going to take this. He wasn't even at like the 15-yard line before I was like, yeah, this is probably going back. No, there's no coverage on this sideline whatsoever. He's going to get up there and he's going to.
They had all the big slow guys out there.
Yeah. It's field goal. It's a field goal unit. All you have to do is get a bunch.
Trying to protect the kicker and the holder. And it's like they had all the big slow guys out there, and like just no chance. I mean, the thing is that funny thing with Alabama is back in that era, early 2010s and late 2000s, Alabama's kicker were terrible because if I recall, I could be wrong, but if I recall, I don't think they ever had scholarships for the kicker. And then later on, Saban's tenure, they started using a scholarship for the kicker, and that's why the kickers have improved.
Yeah. I mean, it would be. Yeah. It is kind of crazy to think, but I guess you figure like your team's just going to be so good,
and they just would get an extra linebacker.
Well, you have 85 scholarship players. Like some of them are going to be worthless anyway. You might as well use 2 of them on kickers and hope one of them is really good, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you should do that. Thankfully, they do that now because Bama needs a kicker. They need a kicker.
Yeah, well, yeah. Now they're going to have 105 scholarships, so it's there's absolutely no excuse.
I do feel bad for the walk-ons, man. Like we've talked about on After Dark as well about the walk-ons just getting obliterated. It's sad.
They're done for. That's an endangered species.
But before we go to our next caller, and I'm
sorry, I'm holding whoever I'm holding up. I'm sorry, I'll be off here in a minute.
We can talk a little bit after the show ends, because for those who what have you got going on this Thanksgiving and this Thanksgiving weekend? For what magic you've got?
Okay, so I'm going to go to my mom's for my mom and I are our only family in town. My brother was just here for a week and a half, so So he's not coming, but it'll just be me and my mom. I'm gonna go over, watch the Lions game, have Thanksgiving probably after the game.
Nice.
And then just probably hang out at her place for a day, or I'll probably stay there Thursday, Friday, and then watch the Ohio State game Saturday with her.
There you
And
go.
then we'll see what see what goes on. But no big family things. I'm not heading down to Ohio to visit extended family or anything. So pretty chill, very low key Thanksgiving, which I honestly prefer. So
well, and let's not forget about the Detroit Lions. If they win this Thanksgiving tomorrow, it'll be the first time since 2016 that they have won a Thanksgiving game.
That's ridiculous. That's unbelievable.
The Lions
Campbell's gonna get him
in. They've gotten so much better. I mean, I remember like all they had was Stafford and Calvin Johnson and Golden Tate. You know, that was it. They'd just be so bad and average at best. Now they're great. I mean, they are great.
Oh yeah, they're a phenomenal team.
That's how you build a team right
there. Yeah. I mean, like, what they've done in the past like 3 years should be studied in like business school.
Panthers, you need to do that. They're not going to, but you need.
Well, you know what helped them in a major the biggest win-win trade probably that has ever been happened in college football was that Stafford trade. Because the Lions didn't have a team that could do anything. They needed assets. They needed to rebuild. I mean, and maybe Sean McVay was stubborn and gave up on Jared Goff too soon, but the relationship just might have been like irreparable at that moment. So, look at this. Like, Stafford's still playing good football for the Rams too. It's not like he fell off the face of the earth after he won a Super Bowl. But even if that's all he did, like, hey, he put you over to the top. He got you that ring.
If the Rams did not win that Super Bowl, then in the future people would have said that the Rams lost the trade. They didn't lose the trade because they got the Super Bowl.
Right.
But now they're losing the trade because the Lions are really great, but the Rams still got what they wanted.
But the Lions clearly got plus value out of that trade.
Yes, absolutely. But the Rams got what they wanted at the beginning of it.
Yeah. So I'm excited. Rivalry weekend. A lot of good games, and I'm sure some games, hopefully not mine, will be more interesting than they appear.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Indiana. Like, just blow out Purdue. Like, I don't care. Just, like, I don't want it close. So you just blow them out. Just get them off the field.
I did want to ask one question real quick. What chance do you give Alabama of making the playoffs right now?
25%.
I feel like
there is still a chance. There should be a chance. I again love Bama, always will, but I'm still not, so biased to the point where I'm like, okay, Bama should be in the playoff no matter what. No, they should not be in the playoff. They do not deserve to be in the playoff. But they still have a chance because of all the chaos. I mean, if like I said earlier, if Ole Miss and Texas A&M and all these other teams didn't lose, Bama wouldn't have had a chance. All those teams have given Bama a chance. True. I mean, all they need is a couple losses, and they're back in the field. I mean, they're at 13 right now. They're at number 13. They just need, like, 2 losses from, like, a Miami or Tennessee or some of the SMU, whatever, and they're back in.
Well, I think it's a 35% chance we get in as of right now.
I think I'm closer to Jackson. I think it's a little more likely than that.
Yeah. The only reason I have it at 25% is because I'm refusing to believe that a 3-loss Alabama with 2 losses to 6-5 teams should get in. I mean, it's a joke.
I mean, we see
you have 1 bad loss, but Bama's got 2 bad losses. 2.
Yep.
But they also have one of the best wins on the season. They also
That's what's keeping them in.
The Georgia win's the only thing saving them. It is. I mean, people can say, the Missouri and the LSU wins, but it's the Georgia win. That's what's saving them.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's not the South Florida win?
No, I would hope it's not. Or the Mercer win. Okay.
Okay, Mercer. Maybe if they would have scheduled Merrimack, they could have another quality
that'd be
win.
Merrimack to be ranked #1 right now.
Oh Lord, save that for after dark.
Oh man.
But Godfather says he was at the 2010 game, had them beat. We went flat in second half. Agreed.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this: TCU would have gotten into the national championship game at that point, and they were not even in a power conference. Yep. They were in Conference USA at the time. Wow. We could have had a Conference USA team playing Oregon for the national championship.
Oh, yeah. It was the Mountain West, actually.
Oh, it was the Mountain West. Okay, that's right.
It's okay, man. Like it was the second to last.
No. I think you're wrong. I think they were in the Conference USA at that point.
Yeah. Well, TCU was in the Conference USA from 2001 to 2004. They were in the Mount West from 2005 to 2011. I
almost forgot the WAC existed. Boise was in the WAC.
I remember Boise in the WAC. Yeah,
that's why I was like, I know TCU and Boise didn't play that season.
Louisiana Tech was in the WAC.
Yeah, the only time TCU Boise State played each other in the same conference was in 2011 in the Mount West, and that was a wild finish. Boise State missed a field goal. It was on the Versus Network on November 12th, 2011.
Yeah.
And
TCU and Utah both went from the Mountain West to a bigger league. TCU to the Big 12, and Utah went to the Pac, but now they're in the Big 12. So it all comes together, right?
Jeffrey, do you remember Idaho in the Sun Belt?
Yes. What's worse, Idaho in the Sun Belt or Louisiana Tech in the WAC? I'd have to go with Idaho in the Sun Belt.
Idaho Sun Belt.
Idaho, really? I mean, you're in the mountain. It's the same thing with Cal and Stanford, the Atlantic Coast Conference. Like, what are we doing right now? I mean, I know geography's out the door. Cal and Stanford on the Pacific Coast. They're in the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's just a name now.
Yeah. You can literally see the bay connected to the Pacific Ocean from Cal's campus. Like, but you can literally see.
Well, it's so bad.
All right. Yeah. Don't let me hog any more time here, guys. I want to.
You're good, Sean. It's been a great conversation.
We'll be seeing you, and we'll definitely be chatting after the show ends. And we got a caller, Austin Williams, aka Sports Talk with Austin. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good. How about you fellas? Happy Thanksgiving Eve.
Happy Thanksgiving you too, Austin.
Or Eve.
What's on your mind?
20 minutes till happy.
There we go. What's on your mind involving the Alabama Crimson Tide? What's up, man?
I got a couple things. And first off, just as a little jab, Jeffrey, Louisville basketball is back. Suck it, Indiana. Okay, I'm done. I apologize.
Mike Woodson is not a good coach. Okay,
he's been going at it on.
I'm sorry. I tried to defend Mike Woodson. The guy can recruit, but he cannot coach. Man, he cannot coach. Louisville did the same thing: drive and kick, same junk. Indiana could stop it, and Indiana just looked like. I mean, they looked like they were doing some stuff they weren't supposed to do in the Bahamas the night before. I don't know what was going on. They played like trash. So congratulations, Louisville basketball, but Mike Woodson, not good.
But anyway, they didn't come to listen to me talk about Louisville basketball. I'll do that on my own time. Yep. What I come to talk to y'all about is, Jeffrey, me and Jackson had this discussion. Since you're here now, I'm going to include you. Alabama's still alive and well for the playoffs. And the thing, too, is, Jeffrey, and the reason why I'm going to bring this up is because you said in the postgame Saturday, after that loss, they were done. They should be it's over. But the committee's telling us There's still hope.
They should be done. I mean, they should be done after losing by 21 to a 6-5, a 6-5, or a 5-5 at the time Oklahoma team, a team that barely beat Auburn, has had tons of terrible games all season long, and Alabama still has a chance. But in my defense, when I said that, A&M hadn't lost yet. I mean, there's some of the crazy things hadn't happened just yet, and plus, just coming off that game. But I mean, I still believe what I said in the fact that they shouldn't be in. They should not have any consideration for the play at all whatsoever. But because of all the chaos, yeah, they still got a shot. They do. They do still have a chance. And I know I said that they were done. Yeah, I did. I said that, but they should be done. But they're not. They're not done because the 12-team playoff and all the chaos and just so many upsets that, Bama can backdoor their way in. But the thing is, it's not going to matter, though, if they make the playoff and they lose, right? I mean, it's not going to matter.
Here's the thing, though. It's the principle involved because, Jeffrey, whether we want to admit it or not, our worst nightmare's coming true. We could see a team like SMU. We could see Indiana. We could see these teams that have played hard and have looked good all year get screwed over as we know it, whether we like it or not. Because what if it comes down to SMU, Alabama, and SMU with 2 losses, but the 2 losses were to good teams, and Miami wins the ACC, but they'll be like, oh, you're not Alabama, SMU. Sorry, you got to go. I don't care that you have 1 less loss than Alabama. And you've dominated your schedule. Sorry. Alabama brings us money.
Alabama would get in over a 2-loss SMU. SMU can't lose. The teams that cannot lose that are in the field right now, the teams that just cannot lose or they're done. SMU cannot lose. Boise State cannot lose. Indiana cannot lose. Indiana cannot. If they lose to Purdue, they're done. I mean, that's not even a question. If they lose to Purdue, they're done. Notre Dame, maybe
they can't lose.
They depends on what happens. It depends. It depends.
Here's the thing with Notre Dame. If it's a Notre Dame Alabama situation, the problem is Notre Dame lost to a group of 4 school. Bama at least lost to Power schools. And the committee will be like, okay, Bama has 3 losses, but guess what? At least they beat Georgia, and at least Vandy and Oklahoma look somewhat competent now.
The only reason I say Notre Dame still has a chance is because if Indiana loses to Purdue, they're already ranked at 10. So they would fall to like 17 or something like that, 18. They'd be way out of the picture. If Notre Dame loses a 1-score game to USC, and there's still some chaos, like SMU goes down, Tennessee goes down, Indiana goes down, Notre Dame could still get in, is what I'm saying. It'd be a slim chance, but they could still get in. Same thing with Penn State. If Penn State lost to Maryland, they could still get in based off other chaos, is what I mean. Indiana has no chance. Indiana has to win. If they lose, they're done. The SMU has to win.
Here's the thing, Jeffrey. I know everyone's banking on the Georgia win, but all of a sudden, Jeffrey, that South Carolina win's looking really good right about now. Have you noticed that?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that has helped. And South Carolina could still make the playoff too. I don't know if you heard our conversation earlier about this, but I said the only 3-loss SEC teams that still can get in are Alabama, South Carolina, and Texas A&M. And the only reason A&M still has a chance is because they could win the SEC. Other than that, they wouldn't. But South Carolina and Alabama could still make the playoff with 3 losses. Ole Miss is done. I think Ole Miss is done. I don't see them getting in. It would take so much junk to happen for them to get in because South Carolina, if they beat Clemson, they're leapfrogging Ole Miss. Nothing Ole Miss can do in that Mississippi State game is going to move them substantially higher unless teams ahead lose, like Indiana, like SMU, like Notre Dame, like Penn, whatever. Ole Miss can't move up, really, with the Mississippi State win. South Carolina has the leverage. They got that Clemson game. If they beat Clemson,
yes,
then South Carolina could leapfrog Ole Miss. They could leapfrog Boise in the rankings, not, Boise would get in the higher seed if they just went out, because Big 12 champion would be the number 12 seed. But in the ranking,
Here's the thing.
Ole Miss could leapfrog. Ole Miss could even leapfrog Alabama with South Carolina rather. I mean, South Carolina could leapfrog Alabama with a great performance, possibly over Clemson. I know head to head, but some people would say, well, if Alabama beats Auburn by 3 and South Carolina beats Clemson by 20, maybe we'll leapfrog South Carolina over Bama because South Carolina is playing better than Bama now. You could do that. Now, I don't know if they're going to say that head to head's that important. I don't know.
Here's the thing, Jeffrey. I want to real quick, Jackson. Don't mean to interrupt, but I want to throw this monkey wrench in here because ESPN brought it up. There's a good chance that the Big 12 champion gets left out and Tulane somehow gets in, and we have Boise and Tulane in there. And I know Jackson we said last night on our show, he thinks that's a bunch of horse stuff, that ESPN's trying to stir up drama, get people talking. Do you think that's a chance?
It's
Jeffrey?
a freaking soap opera.
There's a chance because it's been said, but that's stupid. Honestly, I mean, BYU, Arizona State, Iowa State, Colorado, any of those teams are better than Tulane.
What kind of drugs are they on? But
I know Tulane beat USC in that bowl game, but okay, that was because USC just on defense was Swiss cheese. I mean, they had a lot of opt-outs.
Yeah,
so it's not legit. I mean, it's like Cincinnati hanging with Georgia that year, and that's why they were ranked high in the preseason the next year. Georgia had so many opt-outs since he kept it close. I mean, those bowl games aren't as legit as they would be if the whole teams, everybody on the team was playing.
Well, while we got you here, Austin, what's your score prediction for the Alabama-Auburn game?
So here's what I said. And I said this last night, and you quote me on this. I got 29-23 Alabama. And here's the thing. This is going to be one of them games where Jalen Milroe, everyone's starting to question him again, right? This is the game he's going to prove a lot of doubters wrong once again. They're going to be down a field goal. Milroe's going to take it down, tie it. Alabama's going to win the coin toss in overtime, score, miss the 2-point conversion, and then the Bama defense gets the stop, and Milroe's the hero. And Bama wins in overtime, thus propelling them to the playoffs because the committee will be so impressed with their victory.
That's fair.
The Jalen Milroe sentiment about when people think that he's no good or whatever, that he turns it around. The problem with Milroe, though, is he's done this so many times that people are getting sick of it. Like when you're a quarterback, people want consistency. Like if you have a bad game, even you're bad, like Patrick Mahomes, when he has a bad game, it's still not awful, right? The problem with Milroe is that he keeps sprinkling in these really awful games. And yeah, he normally bounces back from those, but then he reverts back to just awful again a couple weeks later. It's got to stop, or he's not going to have a chance to be an NFL quarterback. I know that's not what we're talking about.
Well, here's the thing, too. I'll say this about Milroe. He did this last year, if you remember, because he had a couple games coming down the stretch where he was not good, but the last couple games of the year, he had Heisman moments. I mean, obviously, the biggest throw of the season last year was, of course, Bond in the corner of the end zone. That's literally for Alabama's season.
That play definitely changed people's opinions on Milroe for the better.
Because let's be honest, Jeffrey, if that play doesn't happen, Alabama's not in the playoffs. And people are saying Milroe sucks. He's awful. He's not a first-round draft pick. But then it changed their opinion to where he became the preseason favorite for the Heisman. You remember that? For a short bit, he was the preseason favorite in some betting places.
Changed because of one play. It's crazy.
Exactly. Well, Jeffrey, I don't think we've asked you your score prediction of this game. What What was it again?
Didn't I say 34-17, or did I say I can't remember. When I did this show with Will the other night, I either said 34-17 or 34-20. I can't remember.
I'm gonna go with 34-17. So I'll take
I just
that.
can't remember. I gotta write down my scores. What I do is I just say my score and then I don't write it down and then I don't remember. Because I'm doing NFL, I'm doing college, but I can't remember, man.
Well,
I'll pick Bama though.
Yeah, agree, Godfather. They could get back in.
So I want to ask you guys this, and this is something I want to hear from you all, since y'all are the Bama people. Mm-hmm. Do you think if Kalen DeBoer goes 9-3, obviously, and you miss the playoffs, what's going to be the conversation in the offseason? Win, lose, or draw the bowl game?
I think there's going to be some fans squawking, but there are going to be a lot of fans that aren't too happy, but they're going to be like, let's see what year 2 brings.
Yeah, he's not on a proverbial hot seat yet. I mean, he's got detractors, and there's going to be Bama fans, even the ones that are still kind of like Jackson said, where let's see what year 2 brings, that are still going to be a little disgruntled by this season. But like, people aren't going to just be like, oh, we're done with DeBoer, kind of like how Indiana fans are with Mike Woodson right now, in basketball. Like, Kalen DeBoer's not going to be there yet because of that. But another season of missing the playoffs next year, then yeah, he's in a lot worse shape. And people are going to be even more irritated. And he still probably doesn't get fired yet if they have like another 9-3 year. But yeah, I agree with the Godfather. Better OC. Gotta get an OC, man. Nick Sheridan's not it. He was not it at Indiana. He was not a good offensive coordinator at Indiana. He's not a good offensive coordinator now. He needed a new offensive coordinator.
We only got him because of the fact that Ryan Grubb left for the Seahawks. And
it was tough not to get him. It was tough not to get him. But if DeBoer makes the right hire there and they do better next year, then he's fine. But he's just going to have some disgruntled fans.
Oh, for sure. Well, Austin, before we let you go, what have you got going on Sports Talk with Austin?
You kicking me off already? I'm offended, Jackson. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not an Alabama guy anyway. But, well, this week I've got, of course, my show with you on Saturday. I'll probably be recapping the Cowboys game on Thanksgiving, doing all that, watching some good college football, all that good stuff, eating some good turkey, watching Louisville tomorrow. Same old, same old. Just, I hope for your all sake, Bama wins, because good grief. So somber when y'all lose.
Yeah, that Oklahoma loss was bad, man. I do not want to see another performance like that. Just effort. I want to see effort. It's like with Indiana today. Lose to Louisville, okay. If it was a competitive game and it went down to the wire and Indiana lost by like 3, okay, it sucks. But it was a good game. Indiana today was trash. And I know Louisville played well, but it was more so that Indiana played bad. That's not a knock on Louisville. But that's the thing. It's the same thing with Oklahoma. Credit to Oklahoma, how they played against Alabama last week. But it was more the fact that Alabama played poor. If Alabama played well, there's no way Oklahoma wins. Alabama played poor. I do not want to see another game like that from Alabama. Just go out there and play well. Play like you were capable of, like you did against Georgia, like you did against LSU, like you did against Missouri. That's the type of Alabama we want to see. You do that, you easily beat Auburn this Saturday. But if you don't, then no. Yeah. So that's what I want to see.
Well, and Black Friday is coming around the corner, and if you don't have this book on your shopping list, don't know what you're doing, because you want to get The Disputed National Champions, College Football's Historical 1990s Reset, written by Mark Rogers himself, where we go over what happened in the 90s, how the decade changed sport, why the championship results should be questioned, how to critically think through the snares, and to appreciate the accomplishments of teams that were not recognized as champions. This book provides an in-depth analysis of the changes, controversies, and outcomes that defined the decade. Grab your copy now.
Not going to want to miss that at all. It's definitely a great Black Friday gift or a Christmas gift as well. You're a fan of Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, or you're a fan of 1990s college football, it's definitely the book for you. Absolutely.
Agreed. And I could tell you right now, it is a go-to. And you can also shop on Amazon using it. You can use the link to support the voice of college football. You don't need to buy the product display. It doesn't cost you a penny. And of course, you can check out the voice of college football X account where we got our friends like Garrison. Oh my God, that's amazing right there. And you can check out all these wonderful shows like the Oregon Show. Well, what do you know? Breaking the fourth wall, side 16th wall, side the 64th wall, and so many fourth walls. There's the Oregon Show. Oh my God, Corey and Justin are making magic together on the Hookeyes Live. And you see Cam Underwood and Mark making magic in Renegade Report. Oh my God, the top 10 rivalry week game matchups for this week.
No Indiana Purdue. Come on, man. Hey, that's Purdue's fault. Purdue didn't hold up their end of the bargain.
I thought, yeah, well, I mean, they thought about putting Indiana Purdue at 10, but not so much because of Purdue, but because of Indiana win and end situation.
Yeah, it's all Purdue's fault, man. Purdue, they stink, and in a way, I'm glad. I hope they stink on Saturday. Please.
There we go. But you can check out this magnificent post of the top 10 rivalry week matchups. And what do we have here? A lot of people come. You give your takes on what you think.
Yeah, people are saying Michigan, Ohio State should be number one. Okay, most years it is, and it is the best rivalry in college football overall. But that Texas A&M game has the most stakes. I agree with it being at number one. It has the most stakes this year.
Yep.
Michigan, Ohio State's the best rivalry, but it's not saying that it's not saying those are the top 10 rivalries in college football. It's saying it's the top 10 matchups this season. Mm-hmm. So I agree with Texas A&M, and South Carolina, Clemson as well. Because, I mean, those two games, those are the only two games on the list, really, that both teams are in play for the playoffs. All the other games, one of the teams is, but the other isn't. Michigan's not involved for the playoff. Auburn's not involved for the playoff. USC's not involved for the playoff. Syracuse isn't. You know what I'm saying? He goes down the line. Texas A&M, South Carolina, Clemson. Both teams are involved for the playoff. That's why those two are the top two. I agree absolutely with that.
Well, in Georgia Tech looks to be an intriguing matchup on Black Friday because it looks like it's going to have a spotlight all to itself. And Georgia Tech has been a team that can really scare some people. We saw it with Miami. We saw it against Florida State and Ireland. It would not surprise me if we see them possibly in that losing streak against Georgia this season. Washington, Oregon. Well, I mean, a lot of people are going to tune into that. I mean, would you rather tune into that or Florida State? Let's be honest.
Don't blame you on that regard. I mean, it'd be hilarious if Florida actually blew that game and all the Billy Napier go out the door. But on the other hand, Florida State's been so bad. You guys just got to put their season out of its misery, man. Their season needs to be done. And 8-win Florida can still happen for Austin. He said 8-4, but Florida can still go 8-5. So you never know.
Agreed. And before we go, you can tune in and become an Alabama YouTube member for Alabama with the Voice of College Football by becoming a Crimson Faithful member for $2.99 a month, where you'll have a loyalty badge next to your name in the chat and in the comments section. And you get a custom emoji to use in the comments section. And you get a member shout out for $4.99 a month. You can become a Saban disciple, and in return, you get access to monthly hangout with me, Johnny, and Jeffrey, and priority replies to comments. And for $9.99 a month, you can connect on social media with us all and give out any content request you can give us. Recruiting, interview requests, literally anything. You can give us anything. We will not let rain, sleet, snow, bad weather, cold weather, hot weather. We're not going to let bad internet stops. We're not going to let anything stop us. We will fulfill your request. By golly, we're going to make sure we're going to fulfill it. That I can promise you, because your investment is important to us and we want to protect it.
Absolutely. Not going to want to miss that at all whatsoever. Definitely appreciate if you guys become a member. We already got some members and definitely appreciate those as well. But like Jackson said, we'll fulfill your request, whatever it may be. Definitely we'll try our best to make it happen.
Agreed. We will do our best for sure. And with that being said, we wish you all a good night and sleep well. Stay safe, stay warm. It's cold out. Like, comment, subscribe. Click on the notification bell so you never miss another video whatsoever. We'll see you soon. Happy Thanksgiving, Godfather, the SEC. Thank you for tuning in to tonight's edition. And we will see you soon. See you next Thursday at our regularly scheduled time.
Everyone have a happy Thanksgiving and roll tide.
Roll tide. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, give them hell, Alabama.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.